Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Sense and Sensibility. I am Eden Appiah-Kubi, author of The Bennet Women and Her Own Happiness, and I am ecstatic today to be with these wonderful two amazing Black American authors specializing in a world where sometimes people don't often see us of historic and contemporary takes of historical romance and Austen retellings. So first we have the lovely Vanessa Riley, who I think is the queen of putting Black people in the Regency era. She does historic romance. She does historical fiction. She does mysteries. And right recently, she proposed A Gamble at Sunset, which I was fortunate to read an arc of. And I just say, run, do not walk. It's a gorgeous story. And her paperback, Queen of Exiles, will be coming out in just a couple of weeks. Or actually, it might be out by the time this airs. Vanessa, so lovely to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Nikki Payne, the wonderful, my sister in Austin. She's the author of Pride and Protest, yes, Pride and Protest, sorry, and most recently Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, and is just a great star in the contemporary Austen canon and contemporary romance, funny, spicy, and just enjoyable novels. Again, I can firmly attest for reading them. Thank you both for joining me. I'm so excited to be talking with you about Sense and Sensibility.
Thank you so much.
And yes, and I also should mention, well I've talked about Vanessa's writing, but Vanessa is here talking Sense and Sensibility because of her work with the Hallmark film version of Sense and Sensibility with the all-Black cast and these stunning costumes that are, fingers crossed, hopefully going to be up for an Emmy from the wonderful Kara-san of Project Runway fame, and many other projects. But I'm a Project Runway dork, so that's where I'm entering in. And Vanessa, you were a consultant on that, and so we're going to hear about that process and also just about her writing as well. So let's get into it.
Yeah, Tony Judkins of Hallmark had reached out probably about 2 years ago. And she'd called up several authors just to kind of see who's writing what. She was heading Mahogany for Hallmark, and she was trying to get a good landscape of what people were doing. And of course, I'm a historical girl, so what flavor of Regency you want? I'm your girl, right? And we started chatting, and then she told me her dream project would be to do a period piece on Sense and Sensibility. Now,
Wow.
I will say, in my head, I was like, Hallmark, for real, go do a period piece on Sense and Sensibility for Black folks, for real. Okay. I didn't think I was gonna hear. Honestly, I didn't think I'd hear anything ever back from them. But about September, October of last year, they got it green lighted. They had a script, and they brought me in as a historical consultant because, one, making sure that the script was not only authentic for the time period, because it's an adaptation of Jane Austen's work, but it's been updated a little bit. And it's also needs to feel like Mahogany, needs to feel like Black folks are living this life. Um, and I went out to Bulgaria. We shot in Bulgaria and Ireland. I worked with the great Kara-san of Project Runway. She designed all the costumes. She coordinated the entire thing. So there are some costumes that were from I think it's called Angels, where every Regency project. So if you ever watch these films, you see the redos. It's because everybody gets their costumes from there. But she ended up making like 65 pieces, and early on, I'm doing PowerPoint presentations. I was joking with my husband, I got a job again. Well, how did this happen? I'm doing PowerPoints on here are the Regency colors, here's the forms, there's the shapes, mannerisms. When they're going outside, women have to have on the bonnets, men have to have their gloves, the whole thing. And then I'm working with Kim Kimball, who is an amazing hair designer. And I'm showing, trying to find pictures or paintings of Black people during this time frame is very limited. You get Dido Bell, you get a few pieces here and there. You get more men, like the generals and things like that, who are painted. But if you look at the women, all women, you will see braided chignons. You will see decorations in their hair. So all the elements of what a woman of color with our coarser type of hair would be wearing, I was able to show these images. She was able to bring things in Pinterest, and then you see this wonder. You see it all come together, and it is so beautiful. So everything has an historical standpoint. The historical accuracy police will be like, it wasn't in the 1995 version of Pride and Prejudice, therefore it's wrong. No, even though that's the most beloved version of Pride and Prejudice, there's errors in that too, darling. I hate to
reach on it.
That my favorite, when he's going down and looking for Wickham, and Lydia, and he's got that little boy comes out with the drink and he's on the street. He should have seen at least one person of color on that street because of where they were filming. And that is historical. So these are all adaptations of books that we love, that we went to school for. We have a place in this world. And the last thing I'm going to say is, working with the set designers so that you see pieces of how this world can exist. Because you go into these stately homes, you're going to see ancestral portraits. So you're going to see ancestral portraits. Well, if you've got a Black family, you're going to go in, you're going to expect to see ancestral portraits. And the set people were actually making them up using AI. And I was like, we don't have to do that. We can actually utilize people of color, Black people in history, and put them on the wall. So that's why you'll see, if you look carefully, you'll see generals, you will see artists, you will see painters, you will see princes, because those are people of color. The tablescape. So I helped design the tablescape. So we have black cake, which is fruited cake, which existed during that time frame. So every element there was so much care and attention. And I had visions of May being a glorified figurehead to come in and help, bail things out if things go south. They listened. They wanted my opinion.
Wow.
And my goal has always been, I'm not going to stunt your creativity. I'm going to show you what the rules are. So if we make a decision to do something different, we know why we're doing something different. And it was a pleasurable experience. If you're out there, it's on Hallmark. So I think Hallmark Now, there's an international version with a duel, by the way. Oh, yeah. They went on. And the American version don't have that. I don't know why American Hallmark don't have a duel, because it's hot. Those brothers was hot. But I digress. Sorry. But it's an amazing experience. I think it's a really great movie. The acting is phenomenal. Like I said, the script the script was great, and we tried to stay true to form to Jane Austen, because her work lives on. The reason her work lives on, the reason that we can make these adaptations, is because of the caliber of work. So it was to respect the work, but yet make modifications, little tweaks that showcased our humanity and our culture in this work.
Wow. It sounds like such a fascinating experience.
It was a blast, guys. I'm going to tell you right now. It was a blast. I want to do it again. We want to get the party back together and go do another one, because
come on,
amazing.
Yeah, I want to see another one.
Roger Bob, T.A. Smith, Kara Sun, Kim Kimball, just dynamic.
But you made a really good point to start with, especially for our virtual Gen Con audiences, like starting with the work itself. And so my first question for both of you is, how did you first encounter Sense and Sensibility, the story, whether in novel form or in a film, or like the Ang Lee film? I think I caught somehow in fourth grade, with Kate Winslet falling over lots of times in the rain. It's a story that I think is right after Pride and Prejudice, the most popular to adapt. And so did you have any encounters with it before your works on it?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I like to call 1995, Year of Our Lord 1995. It was a banner year for Jane Austen. Clueless came out, which was honestly my first entree to Jane Austen at all. I mean, adaptations sometimes do so much work like that, especially modern adaptations. And then after that, after I found out that that was a retelling of Emma, I'm like, wait a minute, Emma, Jane Austen, let me get into white folks' business. Let's see what let's see what's popping. So I started reading Pride and Prejudice, and then Sense and Sensibility came out, and then that 1995 version of Pride and Prejudice came out. So it was really, the girlies were fed in 1995. So I was in a deep Jane Austen hole because of Clueless, and all of this media kind of came to me. I kind of didn't make it out of 1995 alive, So I would say that that was my first entree. It was an onslaught. It was almost kind of like drinking from an Austen fire hose, and it kind of imprinted on me in an interesting way.
Yeah, for me, that 95 is the best year, I must say,
Yeah.
for everything. Clueless, the adaptation. That's why I love what you guys are doing, adapting Jane's work for the modern audience. But as a nerd, I'm back in school. Sense and Sensibility is Jane Austen's first work. You look at it, you could see bits of Wickham, you could see some of her other works
Yeah.
populated into this. So as a writer, you start taking things apart and you're looking at it. And it's kind of interesting that we all learn it in school typically. We get Pride and Prejudice or we get Sense and Sensibility. But yet in this world of adaptations, sometimes it's hard for people to see us adapting these works. It's hard for people to imagine we have a piece of this world.
Yeah.
Jane was one of the most ambitious writers. She wrote about real people. So there's a real Mr. Darcy who broke her heart, unfortunately. And there's a real Miss Lamb, who is a woman of color, who was the richest woman in Sanditon.
Yeah.
She's writing about things she saw. So if she can write about people of color in that world, I think it's really something we all need to look at when we genuflex and think that there's no space for us to adapt and play in this world.
Right. One of the things that I think anyone doing either Regency work or adaptation work of classic literature, the thing that we are going to always run up against is this constant question of historical accuracy, or this notion that we should somehow kind of leave the classics alone, right? That leave them where they were, that they're perfect without the intervention, right, of anything different. But one of the things that the analogies that I love to use, because I'm kind of a child of like the 90s and hip hop, and my mother loved like 70s funk. And so sometimes she would be listening to a song that I'm listening to, that I was listening to, like Biggie, and she'd say, "That's juicy," or she would like find the sample, and that what I find so interesting about like remaking something is that like the entire genre of hip hop is based on finding something that was like wonderful, right? And layering something different or interesting and new on top of it, seeing it from a different perspective and turning it into something amazing and different. And Juicy is a fantastic song. And Biggie's song is also amazing. And they're doing completely different things, right? But they are both allowed to have this foundation of this like kind of classic funk, classic, R&B. And that's what I love about adaptations. And that's always what I push back when people are saying like, leave this alone. And I'm like, art isn't actually meant to be left alone.
You are so right. It's supposed to be constantly reinterpreted.
Yeah.
The reason we're sitting here today talking about Jane Austen is because people have been able to adapt it and bring it to new audiences. Over 200 different adaptations.
Easy.
You've got the things that are happening in Bollywood. I think it was Bride
and Prejudice. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the movie and everything like that. Some of the talk around the movie was a little disheartening. Because I accidentally stumbled into a Facebook group that I
Oh,
will
Lord.
never go back into again.
Honey, I think I know the Facebook group you are talking about, sis. Okay.
Was this the one that said Brad Pitt should play Kunta Kinte? Because personally, I would be there for that. I would be there for that. My name is Toby.
Oh my God. First of all, I'm so sad that I didn't go into that one. No, this is a Jane Austen fan group. This was a Jane Austen fan group, and it is big and it is loud. And they are very opinionated about what Jane Austen should look like.
And once again, I think that would make Jane roll over in her grave because she wanted her work out there. She was writing at a time where women weren't allowed. Her first two novels it isn't until she dies that her brother tells the world that these books that the Prince Regent loves and demanded to have a copy. That's why I think Pride and Prejudice or Emma is actually dedicated to the Prince Regent. They were so moved by this work, but no one knew it was a woman. It was, they knew it was a woman. They called it a lady, but back then it could be anybody writing these works of art. And to know what she went through to get her works published, and then to have almost a similar attitude now when anybody dares to be inspired by Jane to create new work, to get that connections, it's really heartbreaking.
And we know what, if nothing else, we know what Jane Austen thought about moralizers. Look at a character named Mary, I think she was named after like a sister-in-law who she couldn't stand, but that kind of self-importance and rigidity. That you were begging to be taken down in one of her novels for that. So, it's fun. It's interesting that folks who would call themselves fans would probably end up very much parodied in one of her books.
Absolutely. She would be reading them for filth in a book. She would.
And we'd be here for it. And hoping it was 1995 again so we can get a 5-hour miniseries.
Exactly.
Speaking of seeing characters in the books and reflecting in real life, I feel like Sense and Sensibility, there's you have, your Eleanor and Marianne, one or the other, and like people in the Sex and the City way, people ask, are you an Eleanor or are you a Marianne? And so I would ask you guys, do you have a character, and it doesn't have to be Eleanor or Marianne, do you have a character sensibility that you relate to?
Oh, I'm Marianne all the way. Like, I wrote this book, I wrote Sex, Lies, and Sensibility about Eleanor, or the Eleanor character, because I wanted to understand this kind of stoic, face forward, stiff upper lip type of character. I'm just like, oh, she's boring. And even like Edward, I'm just like, oh, can we make Edward, like, how can we make Edward hot? So like, these are characters that I struggled with. Like, I always thought Marianne was more exciting. I thought she felt deeply. I felt that her falling in love with Wickham, not Wickham, oh my God, falling in love with Willoughby, and falling out of love with him by realizing like what he was. I'm just like, look, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You lived hard, you know what I mean? You lived a life, But I'm gonna say I'm firm Marianne, but I wrote my book for Eleanor and Edward to try to understand what would make two people hold back so much on what they love.
I think I'm inclined to Eleanor, and you did a wonderful job, by the way, of bringing them to life and putting a new spin in different cultures to the party. But Eleanor is so cerebral, right? So she's thinking things, and in the films you can only see their face, right? So you don't. I love in the book where you get that little bit of Jane saying, this is what she's really thinking. This is what we're, the behind the scenes. But quiet people need love too.
Oh man.
So
Oh
for
man.
all the quiet, shy, introverted people out there in the world, that one's for them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not
You're
like
right. Eleanor was a firestorm inside, internally, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, Edward was also like the first way that we're introduced to Edward, she describes him as like um a person who everyone in his family has designs on or like desires for him to go in a certain way. And like his one like unifying characteristic was that he didn't give a fuck about what people wanted him to do, that he wanted to, adhere to who he was. And that
Exactly.
was just honestly high key. Jane Austen understood the value of just like a man who does what he says he's gonna do. You know what I mean? And I'm here for that. Yeah.
I think it says something that he's the hero. His heroism is like sticking to his word, and then it's not until and he's willing to suffer for it. But he's a man of honor, and and that may not be the smartest play in that time, but he sticks by it. And I think the thing about sensitivity that always got me is how um Eleanor and Edward are so well matched, and that they are trying to do the right thing. And I think Eleanor's position, and frankly how stressed out she feels the whole book, is to sort of reflect like how hard it is for women, you know. Um and yeah, I think about a lot about how Marianne is a teenager, um, and how Lydia's a teenager as well, and how basically, they're just girls and they don't know the world yet. And I kind of wonder about Eleanor at 15, before she knew a little bit about the world, and if she had more sensibility that was sort of like beaten out of her from circumstance. Um,
The one thing for the folks on the working the film who were new to Jane, they were like, why doesn't Eleanor get with Colonel Brandon? They're the perfect match. He's
Vanessa,
loyal, he's responsible.
if
He
you
got
read the book, also like they get along swimmingly. And when Marianne is off, kind of like, cutting out paper fucking butterflies, like who is she sitting in the parlor with? Always Brandon. She's always kikiing. And I'm like, I feel like Jane Austen was doing a little something. Like in my head, like if I was in the drawing room with her, I'm just like, sis, I know what you're doing, and you're ahead of your time. We can't do what choose, sis. This is Regency, okay? This ain't your time, okay? I know what she was doing. No, this is. Every time I read the book, I get the vibes also that they were more compatible. She has
yes,
them talking more than Eleanor and Edward, and engaging very deeply more than her and Edward. So it's hard for me to not ship them.
yes.
I have feelings about Colonel Brandon because of that. That's sort of like, and yet you chose a 15-year-old. I don't know.
Okay, now tell us what's your tea on Colonel Brandon?
I'm just sort of. I feel like he's a good man, but I don't think he can handle an equal in his relationship.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. You see that? Okay, tell us about it. Tell us about it.
Well, I saw what you saw, and like he's a good man. He cultivates good friendships and has good company, and he knows who he is. But when he leans romantically, I feel like he's all sensibility in his romance, even though he's supposed to be a sensible choice for Marianne. But as a grown man, he's all sensibility. Because why are you chasing after this 15-year-old? Like, you can't tell me there aren't other eligible women. You know?
The one creep factor was that, like, even though I understand the time period and like people were like definitely getting married and
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
at that time. So these were seen as women. But the like it just didn't need to remind you of like your dead ward. You know what I mean? Like that's my thing. Like it could have been romantic, but she didn't have to remind you of like this dead person, and then like now you love her. It's just like Jane, like he could have loved her because of who she was, not because of the weird shit, So like I think she was trying to turn him into like this Lord Byron-esque, like brooding character who's just like suffering from this, love that he lost, like Eleanor by the Sea type of Edgar Allan Poe type of thing.
Right.
It didn't quite curl. Do you know?
Well, I mean, it's like I get it, but like
It's her
he's
first book. It's her
he's going
first
to have to let
book.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Marianne.
It's her
First
first
pancake.
book.
First
It's her
pancake.
book.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Give her some
but
grace.
it's clear that
But I'm there
he's
with you. I'm so there with you.
yeah. What she represents is a beautiful thing, and he's marrying what she represents, and she has problems, so she's marrying him. And
I mean, he
and
did save her.
he did save her.
Homegirl was gonna die. All right, back
He
then.
saved
and and I think he likes to be a hero, and she needs saving. So perfect. Except when you think about that as a marriage, it's one of those things that like as a film, and you roll credits and you walk out of the theater, you're like, yeah, but like when you imagine the couples therapy, like like how'd you guys meet?
But you guys do realize that Eleanor has set herself up and any kids she has for poverty.
Yeah.
While Marianne's children are going to be very well off. And because unfortunately women could not have careers, they were dependent upon their family structure. And the marriage is the biggest decision you could possibly make.
Yep.
It
Yep.
affects how your family's going to be.
Yes, that is
Right.
like Jane Austen's characters, her women. What I love about them is that we always meet them at their point of highest agency. Like
Mhm.
when you're in the marriage market, like this is going to determine how your life, like what you do for the rest of your life, how your children's lives are going to be. And these are women who are just about to get married, and they are at the peak of their agency. And Jane Austen's like, flex that shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, own it, own it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I definitely see that like that Marianne made this like, as far as agency is concerned, like she made this choice. Honestly, wasn't it Colonel Brandon who was going to give Eleanor, excuse me, who's going to give Eleanor and Edward like a parcel of land because he was like impoverished? And he was just like, come on, Porus, you can live on my land, So he was just gonna like do them a solid because he's incredibly wealthy. But Edward did get re-inherited. It did. I hate that word. Inherited it. Did
He
it?
got disinherited. No, he got
No. But
Didn't
didn't
he get?
he get re-inherited?
The bro got it, girl. The bro got all of it.
No. The bro married the sister, and the bro married the woman, and they couldn't stand her, and like he got his dough back.
You sure?
No, let me see. Let me check my reference. It's just always on hand.
Because I always thought they would. Yeah, it's been a minute.
I'm pretty sure that everyone got what they wanted in the end.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Jane Austen is not about making her heroine suffer economically.
Yeah.
It's one thing I appreciate about.
Yeah. She's not gonna leave a girl broke. No,
that's true. No.
That's not a win.
He had a living. I mean, he became the vicar. So
yeah.
He had a living.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, vicar, colonel.
Yeah. Gotta have a title, right?
Yes. I also felt like there are so many characters in Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility as well. Like, so many people populating that world. And one of my favorite like 1-star reviews for Jane Austen was like someone saying it's just a lot of people going to people's houses and visiting. It's like 1 star, And Sense and Sensibility is a lot of visiting,
Yes.
It is a lot of visiting.
But that's that world, right? Because they're part of the gentry, so they can't work.
Mm-hmm.
Even the men aren't supposed to work. They're supposed to be managing estates, and other people are working for them.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with your day? You go and you do courting where you visit people and socialize, and then finally dinner happens, and then there may be a ball afterwards, and just that's
A
your life.
concert,
And church,
yeah.
girl, and church. You still gotta go to church.
Church.
You gotta church. That's it.
Yeah.
So, Nikki, let me ask you, when you were doing your take on Sense and Sensibility novels, what elements of the story we talked about? We discovered a lot of what we like and what we question. Like, what elements of the story were essential for you to bring over?
Oh my gosh. I had to make sure that my Edward character was duty bound in a way that made sense in 2024. It's hard for people to imagine what will make someone kind of say no to their heart's desire, particularly in America. People are just like, whatever you feel, go with it. You know what I mean? Like, if it's in your heart, then it belongs to you. And like there are entire cultures, folks like immigrant cultures and like where that kind of American cowboyism of just like, if you believe it, you can achieve it. Like, no, they're actually like boundaries to this. And there's a community focus to say, like, when I come, I bring all of these people with me. And so, like, what does it mean to be a person who is duty bound? Can they throw it all over for love? Right. We've all seen the movies where the person quits the job and they go back to the small town and they're like running in the airport and they're just like, I don't need my 500K job. I only need you, Tom. Like we've all seen that, right? And that's a place of incredible privilege for people to throw it all away and decide that love is all they need. Like, what if love wasn't enough? You know, what if you couldn't? What if you're eating fried bologna sandwiches? You know what I mean?
Love don't pay the bills.
Come on, baby. Love don't pay the bills. So I had to keep that element of like, this person is incredibly duty bound. I also had to manage the sisters. I had to think about like what it would mean also in 2024 for these sisters to particularly Eleanor to like lose status, right? So like what does status mean? Especially if you're like moving across the country. So they're already like Montgomery County girls in Maryland, right? So they're already kind of are this kind of upper middle class, and they like expect certain aspects of their life to work out in this way. But one of the ways that reputation is still very much guarded in 2024 is the internet. Like you can go viral accidentally. You can be having your worst day at Target, screaming at a at a cashier, and someone record it, and then suddenly you're a Karen, or suddenly you are acting crazy at a store, and then that's who you are in these viral clips over and over and over and over. Like I was just reading an article about the iPad store girl who like does like the "Do you love me?" and like she does the whole dance, and she's just like, so like she just had this whole life afterwards of just really like incredibly sad story about like kind of what's happened to her afterward. But like years and years and years later, her face, her movements in front of that Apple store is all that we know about her. And like it's affected everything that we feel like we know about her. All of this to say that like I wanted to find a way that reputation can still be like shattered in 2024, and you couldn't just kind of you couldn't just go to another job or just move into another state. Like these links followed my character Nora wherever she went, and it tainted all of her relationships. And it was this thing that just was an albatross around her neck, and she felt like she could never have true love in the way that she wanted it because everyone had seen her ass on the internet,
Do you think that her existence as a Black woman made that worse, or what make like I feel like people like to think that we've finally gotten beyond respectability politics, but I think that there's a lot in your book that just shows that idea is that's not true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And one of the 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 issues with that is this idea of like who you date, who you love, who you have a good time with, and who you marry, right? And so like one of the forever questions that people always ask is like, well, why didn't he just, marry? Why didn't he just, spoiler alert, sorry, like marry Nora and pay off all these things and just like kind of have no money but have Nora, and then that would have been a happy ending. And I'm like, first of all, do you go here? Okay, Jane Austen's not leaving anybody broke, but but second of all, like these characters, they have to get it all. You know what I mean? Like particularly as a Black woman, she actually deserves the ring. And so all of this, like, kind of, she's just gonna have her man and they're gonna eat bologna sandwiches like in his trailer. That's not the dream, sis. It's not the dream. And so, like, it was very important for me, particularly as a Black, at writing Black women, that they get it all in the end. And they're not like kind of told like, well, she, he liked her, so they could just like be broke together. I'm like, no, there's more. Don't worry. you know so like that aspect of it, I was very, very keen to make sure that people are like, no, she's gonna get it all.
And you're writing a romance, right? You're
Yeah.
not writing
Yeah.
a love story.
Come
You're writing a
on.
romance. So there's some aspects where they get what they deserve.
They get what they deserve, not a
And
piece of what they deserve.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely a factor for me when I was writing my first novel, The Bennet Women. I had a point where I was like, I can make it so that, they could have a brief relationship and a really lovely experience and then go their separate ways and be lifelong friends. And I was like, no, my dark skinned, not skinny heroine is getting every single thing.
Everything. Come on.
Like if I wanted to write a documentary or a nonfiction novel on the powers of dating, well, I wouldn't because it's depressing. This is a novel, and it gets me
Oh,
what I want.
this ain't a Reddit post. This is romance. Okay.
Exactly. And there are
Here.
things in canon that are just canon. And a happy ever after, a happy ever for now, where you don't have to sacrifice everything for love. You can have it all. I
You
think
can have it
it's
all.
important. It's very important.
Vanessa, as someone who writes across genres, how do you feel about the HEA? I know you have historical fiction where you are very much rooted in
See,
what they
people
actually
really need
transpire.
to figure out what book they're reading of mine. Because because side note, so my daughter and I, she was getting into historicals, and we watched Victoria and Albert, right? The movie. And I was like, girl, these are true stories. So she's like, oh, mom, this is great. An hour and 50 minutes later, she's boohooing. She's like, what did you tell me? He's gonna die. And I was like, it's a true story, honey. It's a beautiful love story, but it's a true story. When I do historical fiction, I go to honor the lives I'm bringing back. I have to follow the story. I've got to tell their story. In Queen of Exiles, though, I'm telling you the story about a real queen who lived during the Regency. Their kingdom was actually from 1811 to 1820 was the kingdom of Haiti. King Christophe loved that woman, and of all the men I've ever researched in history, he's the only one that ever was faithful to his wife. I'm just putting that out there. He bought her jewels. I mean, there's so much research I found on the jewelry and everything. So I love Bridgerton. I love Queen Charlotte, but Queen Louise is a real Black queen during that time frame.
Can I just, I'm sorry. This is blowing my mind right now. I am writing like a Afrofuturist novel right now based on Henri Christophe. Like
Yes,
what if it never stopped? Like it's like
yes,
2022. It's
dude.
like now.
He and his wife brought education. So Prince
Wait.
Saunders came from the United States to
Yep.
teach and lead their education program.
Yep.
Would go into the schools. People just off the plantations or habitations, as they would call it, are
Yeah.
learning French and English.
Come on.
They had a vaccination program. The eighth wonder of the world, which still is the eighth wonder of the world, is the Citadel. They built this all during an 11-year stint of time.
Vanessa,
It is
do not make me drive over there. Okay? Don't make me do it.
Queen of Exiles is already out in hardcover, but next week it's in paperback.
Oh
It's
my
in the
gosh.
audio is a performance just for those. Yeah, the audiobook is
Ooh.
a performance. Robin Miles does it. She does all the accents, the characters, and all that sort of stuff. Plus, for the real nerds in us, it's a full biography, bibliography in the back. So you can also look at those sources that you might need for the book that you're writing.
I am adding my pockets for a affordable ring, okay? Because it's gonna be me and you. Wow.
There you go. There you
Wow.
go, girl. I'm your wing girl right here. I can hook you up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. At this
Making
point, when
connections.
people need, random, I'm now historian, I'm random historian. So I know that, especially when you're looking at the diaspora, you're looking for Black people and anything in the West Indies, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna claim it. No.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I do a lot of history. So yeah, that's my jam. And
In my
these are things they should be in our history books, but they're not.
wow. I was gonna say I'm an anthropologist of the diaspora, particularly in the Caribbean. I did research in Haiti and the Dominican Republic
Love
on
it.
like politics of whitening. It's
Yes.
you know.
I think the women for everything that's going on, women have to rise up again. They were the reason why every one of the islands, every one of the colonies had rebellions. The only ones that successful that made the difference was Hades, because 50% of the people battling on those fields were women.
Yep.
Women are going to have to rise up, take
Yes.
control again.
Oh, come on.
But this is a Jane Austen thing.
This is Jane Austen. Like, we're talking about Regency. We're talking about kingdoms and powerful courtly rules and like what it means for that. And so I see the thread. I see where we got there.
Yes.
But yeah, like Black people's place in imagining, right? Like what it would look like to be like in a court, to be in a successful like Regency space.
Yes.
It was happening at the same time. It was high key Regency era. Do you know what I mean?
I'll give you just a little before we just totally digress. Right. King Christophe, or King Henri Christophe, had made emissaries with Russia, and England. They were his support base. United States under Jefferson cut him off, of course. But he actually convinced the Tsar to keep France from coming back. So so he was successful in that realm. And when the kingdom falls and he dies, Louise goes everywhere in Europe with her two daughters, rebuilds his fortune, and lives like a queen in Europe doing the tours. So you sometimes wonder why certain stories are suppressed.
Do you wonder, Vanessa? Do you wonder?
I don't wonder, but I'm trying to be nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, so we go back, we talking about these little Facebook groups, or we saw people who want to exclude us from this world don't really know the history. We are such a part of the fabric. I mean, every time if someone drinks tea or they have a darkly colored garment, that's indigo. That teas have been picked. That sugar. There's so many different aspects that come from the West Indies and Africa, and so we're all part of the diaspora. And it's time for everybody just hey, it's fiction. Let's have some fun with fiction. Everybody has a part with fiction, and that's why we write the stories we write.
Well, folks, I think we've heard enough. No, that's beautiful.
That is truly beautiful. I think it is literally why virtual JaneCon exists, to be a space that's welcoming to everyone. Like the Austen spaces, as we discussed, have not always been that way. And when I was coming into this world, I was seeing a reaction, like this convention coming as a reaction to less welcoming Austen spaces, and with the idea of inclusion and full history being at the forefront. So even if it's not Sense and Sensibility, it both has the idea and the feeling, if you will, the wisdom and the feeling of that anchors virtual JaneCon. So I would argue that we have not gotten off topic at all. We just are diving deeper.
Come on. Yeah. As we are prone to do, because Vanessa is here.
Yes.
And she rambles real good.
No, not rambles. You go deep with us. If it were just me and Eden, we'd be talking about memes. Okay.
No, you guys, I've read your books. You guys are deep. I like y'all. I like y'all.
Well, I mean, I
Netflix.
think that we can have a fan, like, we could keep going on with this fantastic conversation, but like, let's round off by talking about what you're proudest of from your Sense and Sensibility projects. Vanessa, I'll let you start.
I'm proudest that I was able to voice from a historical standpoint how we have a piece of this world. I was able to witness the beauty and creation of everything from the hair to the gowns to the settings. Watching these actors, Deborah Anakoya, who it was our lead, she was Eleanor. Yeah. She was like, I didn't think I had somebody when I originally got the part. I didn't think it was me. I didn't think I could do it. And reading the script and identifying with Eleanor, trying to find love with the sisterhood of the story, she was like, you know what? I can do that. Seeing her grow into that part was amazing. The camaraderie on set. But I think we have a lasting visual picture of what that world looks like if you add color to that world. And I think that is memorable. I think it was done extremely well. I think it is historically accurate. And it was beautiful.
Oh, gorgeous. Thank you. Nikki, would you like to share?
Yeah, hate to follow that, but like, I think that with Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, I wanted to do this thing by inviting this classic story into the room, right? So we think that somehow we are bringing people of color interloping into this classic story, that we're cutting open Jane Austen and throwing brown people in. But in fact, I wanted to write the story where like these lives of brown folk are happening, and then Jane Austen is spliced in, right? To show that like these themes are universal. So there's this notion, particularly in publishing, right, that if you're writing this book with Black folk and Black themes, then you're writing like this niche category, right? And like these niche folks are gonna understand these niche ideas, right? But it's still oddly revolutionary to say that no, this Black story, this Native story, is actually a universal one. And I think classic novels do that work. It's a Trojan horse, right? Because everyone will basement, like foundationally say, I understand the inner workings of this novel. This is foundational themes, right? If you imagine these faces, imagine these cares, imagine these issues, Native issues, Black issues, then you're able to somehow elevate these niche stories, right, into universal ones. And so it's this kind of like hat trick of turning what people assume are stories that they could never possibly relate to into a universal story. So you're going to read a story about a Black woman with a sex tape who moves to Maine and absolutely feel like that could have been you. Or a Native man who is bound by the duty to his community and absolutely feel for him. And that is what I'm proud of, is bringing that into the universal, into the imaginary, you know?
Also very beautifully said. And I just want to thank you both for talking about Sense and Sensibility, the way it shows how Austen's humanity and the qualities that help her live on are existing in your work and in the beauty of the stories that you tell, both in your historical knowledge and consultation and your beautiful writing, and Nikki, in the novels that you've given us. Just a reminder to everyone tuning in, Nikki Payne for Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, Pride and Protest.
Look at what I have here. Look at what I brought. It's me. It's the girl.
It's beautiful.
Yes, she's gorgeous. Vanessa Riley, A Gamble at Sunset,
Goodness gracious, look at that cover.
and Queen of Exiles coming out in paperback. Romance and historical fiction. So, historical
Yeah,
fiction follows the history. Romance gives you the beautiful love story, but we got them both. And I've been prepared for everything but this. I'm Eden Appiah-Kubi, the Bennet Woman, and my latest, Her Own Happiness. It's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your virtual Jane Con.